All right, beautiful people. Welcome back. It's your TTA Pro, Mr. O, back with another episode. Today we're going to review the December 2023 digital SAT test. So we're gonna solve and review. Let's get this chunky monkey started. The National Heritage Fellowship was created to publicly blank exceptional folk and traditional artists in the United States. In 95, the fellowship was given to the Navajo basket weaver Mary Holiday Black to celebrate her lifetime contributions to the arts. So you have to ask yourself, well, why was the award made? Was it made to what? Recognize exceptional folk. And here we're saying we're celebrating her life. So this is a recognition. Startle means to scare or shock. Familiarize means to know something better. But we're not really familiarizing ourselves with exceptional folk. It's too weak of a word, right? It doesn't match the actual message here. You don't give awards to familiarize, you give awards to recognize, and convey means something like communicate. So here we're going to go with the answer B. Let's go to question number 2. What does the word recall mean? What does the word recall mean? So you read obviously the text up here. The following text is adapted from Kenneth Grahame's novel, The Wind in the Willows. The mole is dazed after briefly meeting a stranger while traveling with a friend. The mole stood still a moment, held in thought, as one wakened suddenly from a beautiful dream who struggles to recall it. Okay. So what is it? It is the dream. So make sure you understand your pronouns as well so you can know the words you need. So right now, we want to blank a dream. So when you wake up, what do you do with a dream? Well, let's continue. And can recapture nothing but a dim dance of the beauty of it. So again, we're still talking about the dream. So here we're saying he cannot recapture the dream. So what does recall mean? Recall means to remember. We're not beginning the dream or overlooking. Overlook means something to not see. It means not see. And then reject. Well, are we rejecting the dream? Are we saying no to the dream? But then if we are, you can reject it, but and can recapture. Right? So and is telling us these words need to be the same. Number 3. Text corpora, such as the Bank of English, are enormous collections of electronically stored texts that can be used for empirical testing of hypotheses regarding how blank a word is in spoken and written English. So we're talking about this text and we're talking about how a word is blank in English, right? And pervasive and profound, incredible. All these I think could fit. So we need to continue. Notice here what we have an example of the previous. For instance, one might have a guess about the incidence. Incidence means frequency. Incidence means frequency of the word get. But only analysis of corpus can prove that get is the fifth most commonly used word. So you have to ask yourself, well, what does the corpus do? It shows us how often a word is used. So we want to go back here. So then again, regarding how often a word is spoken, because we're talking about it's the fifth most common, it's frequency. So now we want a word that shows often or a word that means frequent. Remember, make your answer. Pervasive. What does pervasive mean? It means to reach everywhere, reach everywhere, in every corner. And so this shows us the pervasiveness of the word get. Profound means strong. Well, we're not discussing the strength of a word. Incredible means believable. And we're not discussing again how this word is believable because we have an example of this word, right? And assertive means to force yourself. But again, we're not really asserting. We're discussing the assertiveness of words. British painter Peter is known for his portraits of notable figures in different fields, from poet Wendy Cope to mathematician Christopher Zeeman. Widespread admiration of these works has helped Edwards gain substantial blank as an artist. So widespread admiration. So the works are enjoyed everywhere. The works are enjoyed everywhere. And so what does it give him? If the works are enjoyed everywhere, people enjoy his work, people enjoy what they're looking at. So what does it give him? Substantial fame, for example, as an artist, for example. So sympathy is a negative connotation word. It means like to show feelings or love to other people, to feel for them. No, the answer is prestige, and prestige means like something like high honors, right? And we're saying he does have prestige. Well, there's quite a few things. His portraits of notable figures and then widespread admiration. So this would give him prestige. And assistance means support. Well, we're not really supporting anything. Intolerance means to, withstand, means to withstand, right? Again, that doesn't really work there. So answer B. Finally, number 5, the Apalachicola River Delta system is located in Florida, where the river drains the Gulf of Mexico and is shaped by blank factors. For example, so what is this an example of? It's an example of these factors. So blank factors, and then it gives us an example. So this example will show us what kind of factors we have. What kind of factors? The geography of the coastline influences sedimentary deposition, which over time alters coastal geography. Okay, so it's telling me how one factor influences. This is the example, right? For example, one factor, the geography coastline, influences another factor. So one factor influences another. So which word means one factor influencing another? So tenuous means careful or cautious. I wouldn't think that works. Interdependent means things that rely on each other, that need each other. And this works well because the coastline affects the deposition. So the sedimentary deposition needs the coastline, for example. Unyielding means to not give up, and that doesn't work here. And comprehensive means to be complete, and that doesn't work here. We're going to go with answer B. Okay, so which choice best states the main purpose of the text? Like we said before, what we do, we have to read the text, we have to identify at the very minimum the topic and focus of the text, which will help us understand the main idea of the text. So let's actually read this right here. In the late 1800s, Spanish language newspapers flourished in cities across Texas. We're talking about Spanish language newspapers that flourish. This is the topic right here. Okay, and this is the focus in Texas. So Spanish language newspapers in Texas, right? San Antonio alone produced 11 newspapers in Spanish between 1890 and 1900. So now we're talking about, again, the newspapers in Spanish in Texas, San Antonio. But notice the shift. El Paso surpassed all other cities in the state. What are we still talking about? We're still talking about Spanish newspapers, in Texas, right? We haven't changed anything. This city produced 22 newspapers in Spanish during that period. El Paso is located on the border with Mexico and has always had a large population of Spanish speakers. Now, I want you to notice we are shifting from a general discussion to now more specific discussion about El Paso. El Paso is located on the border with Mexico and has always had a larger population of Spanish speakers. So this is telling us why there's Spanish newspapers. Thus, another shift. It is unsurprising that the city became such a rich site for Spanish language journalism. So now that we know what is the main idea, Spanish newspapers in Texas, in the cities of Texas, there were many. This is the idea, guys. This is the idea. Now, when I check my answers, we eliminate answers that are too specific, answers that are unsupported, answers that do not answer the question. So, answer A, for example. Which is the purpose? To compare Spanish language newspapers published in Texas today with ones published there during the late 1800s. Now, this is very easily wrong because We do not mention anything about today, nor do we compare the time periods. We might compare cities. We compare El Paso with San Antonio, but that's it, really. So this is wrong. Answer B, to explain that Spanish language newspapers thrived in Texas and especially in El Paso during the late 1800s. Well, let's figure this out here. Are they explaining anything? Well, to explain means to give us detail. And do we have this? Check. Spanish language newspapers thrived. Well, what does thrived mean? It means they did well. It means they did very well, right? Well, do we have them thriving? Well, it tells you that they flourished. This is the topic sentence. In the topic sentence, we say we flourished. Check. In Texas, and especially. So now, do we specifically emphasize El Paso? Well, we do, because here El Paso surpassed all other cities in the state. So this indicates it especially, specifically, more than the others. My answer is B. Now, if we look at answer C, to argue that Spanish language newspapers published in El Paso influenced the ones published in San Antonio. Well, where is this influence? If we read the text, we just talk about San Antonio, we talk about El Paso. There is no connection. So answer C is wrong. D, to explain why Spanish language newspapers published in Texas were so popular in Mexico. So do we say this? Well, we say one thing about Mexico, right? El Paso is located on the border with Mexico. Okay. But why do we say this information? To say that there are many Spanish speakers, right? We're not saying it because the newspapers are popular in Mexico. We don't mention popularity in Mexico at all. Now, don't be tricked. Well, it says, Mexico here and Mexico here. That's not how we answer questions, right? So the best answer here is B. Question number 7, the function of the underlined sentence. So again, we read the paragraph and then we look at the underlined sentence and we ask ourselves first, what does it say? And then we ask ourselves, why is this said? So what and then why? And when you check the answer choices, your answer must be in the underlined sentence, not before, not after. So let's check this out, right? In Husak, an indigenous language from the Midwest of what is now the United States, paras means flat, whereas paraparas means square. This phenomenon, in which an element of a root word is repeated, sometimes with modification within another word that is related to the root word, is called reduplication. In this case, what is this case? The paras and paraparash. In this case, the element para in paras gets repeated in paraparas. So if I ask you, well, what does it say? Well, it tells us the element para and how it's repeated. And I ask you why, because you'll tell me why. It's an example. It's giving me an example, it's giving me a further explanation of what's being said. There are many examples of this type of reduplication. So, what is the function of the underlined sentence? To give you an example, to give you more of an explanation about the word paraparos, about the example paraparos. So, you check answer A. It emphasizes how frequently reduplication occurs in Husak. Well, first of all, there is no frequency here in the underlined portion. Second of all, we're not talking about reduplication in Husak in this sentence. We're talking about reduplication in the word paraparak. So answer A is wrong. It's too general, right? And it's unsupported. Answer B, it acknowledges that Husak has some important exceptions. Again, this is not an exception. It says, well, in this case, sounds like an exception, but we're talking about in this case as in this specific instance. So exception means something that is not applied, or the rule is not applied. So again, this doesn't work to the general pattern. So answer C is incorrect. One wrong word makes the answer incorrect. Answer B, it elaborates on the discussion of reduplication. Well, okay, does it elaborate? It does, right? It's giving us more detail. To elaborate means to add more detail. By explaining how it works, well, does it explain how it works? It does. It tells us para in paras is repeated in paraparas. So this shows us explaining how reduplication works. In the specific Husak words introduced earlier, are we talking about a word introduced earlier? We are. Is it Husak word? It is. So all of this is a go. Check, 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 and check, like a checklist. Your answer is a checklist. Answer D, it provides English translation. Well, again, is this underlined portion the purpose of it to give us an English translation? There is no translation here. So here the answer is C. All right, question number 8. Again, underlined portion, we want to find the function of this specific information. Now, remember, your answer must be here, right? Let's read first of all in a study by M.D. and colleagues. All of these names, I just say the first letter. Residents of Mexico, see, Mexico, Buenos Aires, Argentina, were surveyed about parks in their cities. Of the 562 respondents from Mexico City, 77% indicated that they used the city's parks, and of the 683 respondents, 69% indicated using city parks. So, given that the percentage of Mexico respondents who reported living within a 10-minute walk of a park. Now, wait 1 second. Let's just check out the values. So, Mexico City, 77%, Buenos Aires, 69%. So Mexico City, hoops, was greater than Buenos Aires with regards to using the city park. Okay, with regards to using the city park. So it's important to keep track of the values, like we said. So we said in Mexico City, 77% visit parks. Buenos Aires, 69% visit parks. Now look at this part. This is a new value. The percentage of people in Mexico City who reported living within 10-minute walk of a park, so 10 minutes away, was much lower than. So Mexico City was less than Buenos Aires when living 10 minutes away. That means the people in Mexico City, 77% of these people who visit a park actually live further away from the park than Buenos Aires. So the people living within a 10-minute walk of a park was much lower than that reported by Buenos Aires respondents. Greater proximity alone can't explain the difference in park use. So why do we write this information? It's to compare two things, right? To compare Mexico City and Buenos Aires in the results, right? In the results. So let's check our answers. It marks a shift from the discussion of researchers' conclusion to a discussion of their methods. So this is a pretty easy one to say is wrong, because where are these methods? Right? Where are these methods? Methods means how they did the study, and this does not mark that shift, right? A is wrong. B, it identifies the nature of a relationship that is significant to the text's conclusion. So does it identify the nature of a relationship? Well, it tells us that Mexico City, Buenos Aires, and it shows a relationship to show that Mexico City is less than Buenos Aires. So it is showing the nature of a relationship, that Mexico City is less than Buenos Aires for the number of people living 10 minutes away from a park. And is it significant? Well, it is. Why is it significant? Why is it important? Well, you have to understand, more people in Mexico City visit parks than Buenos Aires. So, do these people in Mexico City live closer to the park? No, because that's what people would think. We would say, well, they live closer. That's why they go more. Well, no, the people in Mexico City actually, most of them live further than 10 minutes away. So this is a significant part of the conclusion. So why is it important? It eliminates a possibility. Greater proximity alone can't explain the difference in park use, right? So we can't explain this and say, well, people in Mexico City live closer, so that's why they go to the park more often. So it is significant. So answer B is the best answer. Answer C, it provides context to help readers understand the scope of the research survey, the size of the survey, the objectives of the survey. Well, no, again, it's a comparative element. And answer D, it introduces a counter example, but it does not. It doesn't introduce a counter example. It introduces a comparison, not a counterexample. So answer D is incorrect. We're going to go with answer B. Here, when it asks us about the main idea, like we said, what you're going to do is you're going to focus on the character. And from there, you're either going to focus on character traits, or you're going to focus on character relationships, or you're going to focus on the events, or all three. Now, be careful with these types of questions because this is, like we said, is fictional. Therefore, be careful with answers that are too specific. And you're going to see this a lot on the digital SAT, answers that are too specific. Read the blurb. Okay, da da da. The narrator is on a walk in the countryside outside of Paris, France. I walked slowly beneath the young leaves, drinking in the air, fragrant with the odor of young buds and sap. I sauntered along, forgetful of my musty papers, of the offices of my chief, my colleagues, my documents, and think of the good things that were sure to come to me, of all the veiled unknown contained in the future. A thousand recollections of childhood came over me, awakened by these country odors, and I walked along, permeated with a fragrant, living enchantment, the emotional enchantment of the woods, warmed by the sun of June. We're talking about the character and and the events, his experiences walking in Paris. So, what is the main idea? Having decided to leave his current employment, well, did he leave his current employment? Leaving your current employment means he quit. The narrator is returning to his childhood home in the country. So, did he really quit his job? There's no evidence that he quit his job. The narrator is on a walk. That's all it says. So, he left the office to get some fresh air, to go on a nice walk. So, no. And again, the narrator is returning to his childhood home in the country. Again, recollections of childhood. He's not returning, it's just a memory of his childhood. So that's wrong. The narrator's natural surroundings. Are we discussing his natural surroundings? Well, we are. We're talking about the young leaves, the air, the fragrant with the odor of young buds and sap, right? So here, natural surroundings help him escape his work concerns. Does he escape his work concerns? Well, yes. He says, I sauntered along. So sauntered means like I wandered, I walked happily, forgetful of papers, offices, chief, colleagues, my documents, and thinking of the good things. So he's forgetting, well, he thinks of these as bad things, I guess, and then he's thinking of the good things that are going to come in the future. So does it help him escape his work concerns? Well, it does. It makes him forgetful of the bad and think of the good. By prompting hopes, does he have hopes about the future? Well, he does, right? Good things that will come to me, the unveiled, unknown, contained in the future, okay? And memories of youth, well, yeah, again, recollections of childhood awakened him. So I like answer B. Answer C, the narrator is using the quiet of the countryside. Okay, is it the quiet of the countryside? Sure, right? To help him think about how projects at work could be advantageous of his career. Well, he's forgetful about them. So, no, this is actually opposite to the text. And then answer D, the narrator forgets to address pressing work issues. He forgets to address pressing work issues. Well, he's not, he doesn't, here indicates he's always forgetting. But in the text, it tells us he's forgetful. So, this is temporary. This is temporary. Answer D indicates it's something that's continuous because of the word forgets. Again, he forgets to address pressing work issues. No, he ignores them. So forgetful here indicates that he left them. He's not forgetting them. So answer D is incorrect. Number 10. So here with question number 10, what we're looking for is Alfonso would most likely agree with which statement about the studies of decision making. So what we want to do is number one, we want to identify Alfonso's position up here. We want to identify Alfonso's position. So here we have some background information about pedestrian traffic, meaning people walking on their feet. And it tells us that its highly varied streetscape may be insufficient to induce increased walking in other cities. It's telling us a problem. As urbanist Alfonso argues, okay, what does she argue? Mariella Alfonso argues, our understanding of individuals' decision making about whether to walk is insufficiently, geez, College Board, great use of the same word twice, whether to walk is insufficiently robust. It's insufficiently, it's weak, basically. That's what he's telling us. Our understanding of why people walk, it is weak. There are many reasons why. Some studies emphasizes the role of demographic characteristics, other the role of public transit availability, and so on. But walking decisions are made in complex contexts in which multiple conditions and needs inform individual choices. So Alfonso says, well, it's not simple. Many factors. Many factors. So here, what would Alfonso would most likely agree with which statement about studies of decision making? Well, he should agree that there are many factors, that it is not simple. It is not simple, right? Let's check our answers. They would be improved by efforts to identify the features that cities with high pedestrian traffic have in common. Well, the problem is, well, this is opposite to the passage. Not just because of Alfonso saying there are many factors. Also, here, Marrakesh is great, right? But what they do in Marrakesh may not work in other places. So it may be insufficient to induce increased walking in other cities. So to say, well, to identify features in one city and then apply it to another city, that still wouldn't work. That still wouldn't work. Answer B, they are unlikely to find convincing evidence of that any single factor, right? Consistently predicts walking decisions. Check, check, check. Because Alfonso's saying it's not one thing, it's complex context with multiple conditions. And so if you find a single factor, Alfonso's going to tell you, hey, get back to the lab. That's not true. Our answer is answer B. Answer C, they have overstated the extent to which people differ in their decision making. This contradicts Alfonso's position because Alfonso's saying, hey, there are many factors. He's the one emphasizing that. So it's not overstated or exaggerated. Answer D, they tend to be misleading because they ignore the most important factor influencing walking decisions. But again, contradicts Alfonso because there is no most important factor, right? There are complex contexts, there are complex conditions, but there isn't the most important factor, which is one thing. So D is incorrect. I'm going to hit you with answer B. I like these questions. These are easier questions. Which one uses data to complete the graph? The total area of Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe in Minnesota is only Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe in Minnesota, 1,311. One done, son. Nah, there's not too much there, right? Illustrate the claim, beautiful people. So, like we said, to illustrate the claim, you're going to read the text. The text will tell you something. Your answer to illustrate the claim means it will show you something. This is in writing called show versus tell. So, like we said, telling Omar is happy. This is telling me how Omar feels. Showing Omar jumped in celebration. Do you see how the two things are the same? One tells me, one shows me. So here in the poem, the speaker describes contradictory feelings, opposite feelings, while experiencing the sights and sounds of a spring day. So our answer must have, first of all, contradictory feelings, and it must discuss the experience of a spring day. Look at answer A. Through primrose tufts in that sweet bower, the periwinkle trilled its wreaths, and 'tis my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. Well, where's the contradictory feeling? We're talking about, the beauty of nature, the beauty of flower, and how the flower is enjoying the air and the weather. So answer A is incorrect, mundo. Answer B, the budding twigs spread out their fan to catch the breezy air, and I must think, do all I can, that there was pleasure there. Again, we're talking about twigs and how they spread out like a fan to catch the air, and that there was pleasure there's happiness there, and there's no contradictory feelings. So that's a no good answer, right? Answer C, the birds around me hopped and played, their thoughts I cannot measure, but the least motion which they made. It seemed a thrill of pleasure. Again, this shows the happiness of the birds. No contradictions, right? Enter D. I heard a thousand blended notes while in a grove I sat reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind. This is the contradiction, right? Here, does it show us experiencing the sights and sounds of a spring day? Well, yeah, while in a grove is a garden, I sat reclined, right? In that sweet mood. And so while he was in the grove and he was chilling, having a good old time, it would put him in a good mood, in that sweet mood. So this shows us he is experiencing the sights and sounds of the spring day. We're going to go with answer D. D for diabolical. Question 13, data from the table. Okay, so we read this right here. Cool, beautiful. Researchers have analyzed and dated each of the samples, concluding that the lunar samples collected during the Chang'e 5 mission are significant because. Okay, so why are they significant? So when I'm looking at the answers, it does have to have support. My answer is A. I mean, they are much younger, so I see Chang'e 5, 2020, landing site Oceanus Procellarum, age 2.0, right? 2 billion years, which is lower than the rest. So they're much younger than the samples brought back from any of the Apollo missions. Just make sure these are all Apollo missions, right? Is it younger? It is. 2 is less than 3. Enters A. Enter B. They were collected from the same landing site as Apollo 11. Well, if you check out Apollo 11, you have here in the Mare Tranquillitatis, but Chang'e has been in the Oceanus Procellarum. No, they are closest in age to the samples brought back to the Apollo 17. Again, if you check Apollo 17, it's not the closest to age. The closest to age would be Apollo 15, not 17. So no there. They helped confirm the predicted ages of lunar samples from the Apollo missions. How? There's no evidence for that in the text, neither from the table. We're gonna say answer A. So supporting the text, this one's asking us about number 14, which would most directly support Eligado and colleagues' conclusion. So we have to find the conclusion. The conclusion comes in the end. Obviously, we have to read the text, right? So biologist Rosanna believes that we might learn how multicellular organisms develop from single-celled ones if we understand why the single-celled organism, SR, the oldest living relative of animals, sometimes forms colonies of cells. So SR is a single cell and it forms colonies of cells. It forms colonies of cells. See, I'm keeping track of values. So this is value number 1, right? Let's check out value number 2. Eligado reviewed data from many studies of SR response when exposed to another type of single-celled organism, bacteria, including Eric's work with DF, okay, bacteria, and Young Hoon Yoon's work with AM bacteria, okay. So we're looking how SR mixes or responds with DF and AM. Notice how I'm not saying these names so I don't get confused. A and colleagues concluded that both DF and AM might have played a role in the development of multicellular organisms. So what we're saying is, or what the conclusion is that DF plus AM somehow work with SR to make multi-cell organisms, to make multi-cells. Look at this. SR tended to form colonies when exposed to AM, but not DF. So this is opposite to the passage because it says that both of them played a role. That's wrong. Answer B. Although several studies involving other bacteria species found that SR tended to form colonies after bacteria exposure, only the studies used DF and AM tested whether the amount of bacteria exposure affected the rate of colony formation. How does that support the text? How does that support Iligado's conclusion? Because Iligado's telling us that both DF and AM played a role. Okay? So here, this doesn't support the conclusion. This goes off topic and discusses something else, right? Because now we're talking about the amount of bacteria exposure. We're not talking about the amount in the text, nor do we mention the amount of exposure. B is wrong. SR tended to form colonies when exposed to DF, but not when exposed to AM. So given answer C and A are the same, right? And here it tells us both. DSR tended to form colonies when exposed to DF and when exposed to AM. Our answer is D. They form colonies of cells. So what we understand is AF and excuse me, Ooh, AM and DF, they played a role there. So now we can understand that they helped SR form colony. This is a hard one. We do have to keep track of values. Okay, but it's really important to pay attention to the values. This one's a short one, so values wouldn't be too bad. It's important to pay attention to shifts, meaning when you shift, and here is a shift right here where we contrast, right? So let's check this out. The MCS examines trends in childhood, unfolding over many years. As is true of most longitudinal studies a big study, right? That means they study many parts, so it's not just like people, maybe their age and their weight and their time and their work and their salary. So longitudinal study is a bunch of factors. So as true of most longitudinal studies, this need for years of data collection results in high costs. By contrast, okay, so now we're going from something that requires years, something that has high cost, okay, now we're showing a contrast. A relatively straightforward fitness study, such as the one that is merely shows us how small this is, merely trying to identify the percentage of regular exercisers in a city who do weight training, may not need a large budget because, okay, so what is a contrast to many years? Well, they tell us, right? It's straightforward, and high cost. That means not many years, few years, and low cost. That's the contrast we need. Answer A. 19,000 people is more than enough for MCS to find trends in childhood development. I mean, how does this complete the contrast? Right now, we are talking about a fitness study, not the MCS. So, answer A is not logical here. Answer B, longitudinal methods are probably suitable for the fitness study, but it tells us that by contrast, it's straightforward and doesn't need all of that time. So answer B is contradicts. Answer C, the fitness study can be done well without years of data collection. Well, yeah, right. Answer C, it is a contrast. That means we don't need the longitudinal study. It's straightforward, right? And we're just trying to find one small thing. So it doesn't need a large budget. Answer D, it would be easy for MCS researchers to add questions to their childhood development study. How does this complete the discussion about fitness study? Our answer here is C. Question number 16. Now pay attention how we work through these questions, okay? Oyster mushrooms typically get their nutrients from the damp logs. Some people skip and they go here. You can do that, by the way, but not all the time, okay? Again, some people skip. Let me start over. Question number 16. Okay, so like we said, some people can skip and they come here على طول. This is sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If you skip, keep in mind you risk skipping a big chunk of maybe important information. Does that mean this is always true? No, that does not mean this is always true. So keep that in mind, right? So let's check this out. Oyster mushrooms get their nutrients from the damp logs on which they grow, but the fungi are also carnivorous with the ability to kill and consume microscopic worms. Okay, as nematodes. Okay, as the researchers have shown, the mushrooms release a toxin that is deadly to nematodes that blank in contact with it. Oh, okay. So that blank in contact. What are we talking about? In contact is like that touches it. What is it? The nematodes. So, what is touching the nematodes? Well, the mushrooms. No, that doesn't make sense. The mushrooms come in contact with it? No, 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 no. So, I assume that the nematodes come in contact with the mushrooms. Let's try it again. They release a toxin that is deadly to nematodes. That nematodes, okay, this is better, in contact with it. So we're talking about the nematodes come in contact. So nematodes, well, has, this is singular. This is incorrect. Comes, well, this is singular. Nematodes is plural. Is singular. Answer is D, come. Notice how we have three singular, one plural. I mean, this is a sign. It doesn't mean this is correct. It just means this is a sign. So we're going to say number 16 is D. I almost got tricked there. Number 17. Okay, so this is a punctuation question, right? This is a punctuation question. How do I know? You have a semicolon, nothing, comma, nothing. Okay. So with punctuation, you should read from the beginning. And when we work on punctuation, we look at the number of independent ideas first, and then we check where they are. Okay. So the sculptures of are meant to challenge viewers to consider their own relationships to material. So her thought-provoking works were no different. Notice this all prepositional phrase in the 1999 exhibition. Remove. So Kari Douglas Camp. All this is an adjective clause. Remove. So thought-provoking works were no different. So how many independent ideas do we have? We have two independent ideas. There's only one thing that can work. Answer A. A semicolon comes between two independent ideas. B is a run-on, C is a comma splice, D is a run-on. We're going to go here with answer A. Number 18. Now, again, notice here another punctuation question. How do we know? Because of the different forms of punctuation. Okay, different forms of punctuation. Before I even open my mouth, I can automatically tell you. Well, I won't automatically tell you. Let's check this out so I don't make mistakes. Okay. So these have the molar masses, okay, of G mole, some of the G mole. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Okay. Respectively in stoichiometry, molar. So the question is actually not a punctuation questions. It's actually asking us about the word respectively. Where should we put this word, right? Let's begin with answer C. This is wrong. Okay. Why? Because we have a parenthetical element. So this is mass helps convert between this and that. This is in the parentheses. So it's not classified as part of the idea. So we only have one independent idea. So we can eliminate answer C. Is there anything else I can eliminate? Answer A. Why? Because of the word respectively actually comes in the sentence, not in the parenthetical element. When you say two things, so one, two, and you want to maintain the order of things, then you add comma respectively, just so you know. So what do I mean by this? So for example, here we're talking about the C14H30 and we're talking about C12H26. So they have a molar mass of 198 and 170, comma, respectively. That means I'm telling you the first number 198 is for the first molecule C14H30. And the second number 170.33 is for the second molecule. So when we say respectively, we're maintaining the order. We're maintaining the order. So you have an independent idea, comma, respectively. That's how it goes, by the way. So if you look at answer B, well, comma, respectively, and then you have a comma parenthetical element, which is incorrect. Answer is D. We have the independent idea, comma, respectively, check. And then we have the parenthetical element afterwards. No problem there, right? In stoichiometry, be like, well, why do we have a parentheses in the a comma in the parenthetical element? This is perfectly normal. This is perfectly normal. It's like a dependent clause inside the non-essential parenthetical element. Number 19. Um, so Number 18, we're done. Number 19. So, okay, let's check this out here. So, this is another punctuation question. All right, look at that. Most people are going to see answer D and say that's the answer. Make sure you read. Okay, so they're testing us on that. And when you're tested on that, you make sure you have a connection between that and the verb. That's really, really important. Okay. Okay, the timeline of African American music, a digital resource that. So let's say a digital resource that, okay, through which combination of text, images, and music clips, trace. Okay, see here? You see how we have a comma verb? So we have a that, okay? And then we're going to ignore these commas, right? This comma we're going to ignore. This comma we're going to ignore because this is a list. It's not related. But I do have a comma verb. So I have the that relative clause plus a comma plus a verb. This is always 100% incorrect. This breaks form, okay? So I need to connect that to the verb. How do I do that? By adding another comma. By adding another comma, now I made a bridge to the verb. Okay, so none of these answers will work. So, for example, if you look at answer A, right, comma that, this is incorrect, right? A digital resource that, so that, comma that is usually 95% of the time wrong. It describes the word before it. Same thing with answer B, comma that is wrong. You're left with C and D, and people are going to see D and say that's the answer. This is wrong. Like I told you, why? Because you have a that plus one comma and then plus a verb. You can't do that. They need to be connected. So the answer is C. We're going to go with answer C. What did we do with answer C? We got that first comma and then the comma verb. And then the comma verb traces, right? And then we ignore these again. Like we said, this is a list, so that has no effect. No effect. So here we're going to say answer C. Number 20. Okay. So looks like another punctuation question, comma here, comma, 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 nothing. I won't even read this, or I shouldn't even read this, because if you have a job plus name, then you have to keep that name. Keep the name. It is essential. Okay, when you have a job name. So for moreover, lawyer and cycling advocate, Ernesto Hernandez Lopez. Oops. Advocate Ernesto Hernandez Lopez. The answer is D. Again, why? This is almost automatic, guys. You have a job, okay, lawyer in cycling, job plus name. You keep the name, it is essential. Never use double commas with the names, okay? That name is important. Number 21, another punctuation based question. Now, again, what do we do with punctuation question? We need to find the number of independent ideas. By the way, there's a pattern here. Red flag, we have a pattern, and that pattern comes in answer D. Okay? Before I read the sentence, please remember independent idea plus comma plus ing is correct form and structure. Memorize that. It is a pattern. So if we're reading through here, this is dependent. I'm going to ignore this. Okay, so this is also dependent. Look at this, so I can show you what I'm reading. While other even-toed ungulate species, such as water buffalo, are among the most populous animal species on the earth. Okay, this is all dependent, right? While is the conjunction, comma, comma, it continues, okay? And then here's a non-essential clause, such as. So this full idea before is dependent. Let's continue here. The P gazelle, you see how I said P? I'm not going to sit here and read this name. Has a total population between 700 and 800 individuals. Okay, this is independent. One of the criteria required for a species. Now look at this. One of the criteria, okay, required. Is this a verb? No, this is not a verb. This is an adjective. It's not an action. It's not an action. This is an adjective describing criteria. It's not an action. So not anything ed is a verb. One of the criteria required for a species to be considered endangered, to be considered, this is not a verb. To be, right? It's infinitive. It's not counted as a verb. So idea number two. So now we have to think, is it independent or dependent? It is dependent. I go to my answer choices. Answer A, the semicolon is a fragment. Unacceptable. Answer B, well, it fulfills half the rule, which is independent idea colon, which is correct, but you do not have an ing after. Okay? Ing phrases do not receive colons. Answer A and answer C are the same, right? We're left with answer D with the comma. Remember, independent idea, comma, ing structure. This is a pattern you need to memorize. So here we're going to say answer D, number 22. Okay. So this is a transitional question. Now, lastly, I guess means in the end, in fact, is an emphasis. For example, gives an example, so it's specific information or details, specific details. And besides means beside the point, on the side. Um, okay, so let's check this out. So they use trophic pyramids to illustrate the food chain with a given ecosystem. Okay. So at the base, there are producers like plants, followed by herbivores at the second trophic level, then omnivores and carnivores at the third. At the fourth highest trophic level are the apex predators. So it's telling us the organization, right? You have the first, you have the second, you have the third, and then in the end, you have the fourth, right? Lastly. So you're going to say lastly. It's telling you the order, and lastly indicates this is the last one in the trophic pyramid, number 23. Okay, so here in number 23, they found a broad pattern of valence dependent mutation. Negative adjectives saw a faster rate of cognate replacement, the rate at which a word will be replaced over time with non-cognate form than other words. So negative adjective is replaced faster. This is idea one. Okay, question mark. The adjective illegal would be expected to mutate faster than the crisis. Now, if I say, for example, right, this looks like an example. Do I have this? No. There is no more, for example, right? But I know it is continuous. I know it is continuous, right? So I won't say however, because however means but, it's opposites. No, right? And meanwhile means two things happening at the same time. So this is for time, no. Thus and moreover, but moreover means we're adding a second new point. But are we doing that here? Well, actually, no. We're saying how one word, adjectives are replaced faster. One word is replaced faster than another word, and then we have a specific detail. So I would go with thus. So because one word replaces another, the adjective illegal would be expected to go faster than crisis. So this is a trickier one. Number 24. So I want you to keep in mind too, because I use because as a test to indicate cause and effect. When I see because X, we have Y. It makes it easier for me to make that connection. So it's a little trick you can use. 24, however, is an opposite. It means but indeed emphasizes. Second means, second. Number two, likewise means equal situation. Okay. So Albert Popa took up graffiti art, spraying his work onto what was at the time an unconventional surface. Okay, concrete. Okay. So he sprayed on an unconventional surface, concrete. Question mark. His son also used unusual canvas. He also used unconventional surface. So we want also. We want also. However, no, indeed, no, second, no, likewise. We're saying what Albert did was the same as, or what Albert's son did was the same as his father. They were equal in what they both did. So therefore, we hit you with the likewise number 25. So we have to pay attention to the question. The student wants to present the study and its findings. It's not wrong to read the choices, or it's not wrong to read the notes. It's no shame in your game. Okay. But I don't most of the time unless I have two answers. So keep in mind, if you have two answers that could be correct, then check the notes. Then check the notes, right? So, researchers in 2021 conducted a study to analyze elemental composition of maps Inc. The problem is there's no findings. Wrong. There are no findings here. Wrong. Eliminated. Get out my face. Get out of my face. Here, the study revealed that it contains titanium compound not used. I like B. I'm going to check my other answers. I didn't read the notes, so I have to make sure there's nothing else. I don't believe by some type of drawn was the focus of a study. No results here. Okay. They study the elemental composition, but there are no results here. So our best answer is B. Why? Because we discuss the study and what we know from that study. Ooh la la. Number 26. The student wants to explain what a sky island is. Okay, so now we're looking for an answer that tells us the meaning of sky island. Okay, no sky island is here, doesn't tell us anything here. The environment differs drastically, but I don't know what a sky island is. A sky island is an isolated mountain range. This very clearly tells us what a sky island is. Answer D. So look, the El Pinito Mountains, which are considered to be a sky island. Well, the problem here, it still doesn't tell me what it is. It doesn't tell me the definition of a sky island. Not an example. This is an example. No, we need the definition of the sky island. So we're going to hit you with answer C there. Number 27. Student wants to explain an advantage of the ICAA's archive being digital. So we need an advantage. Now keep in mind, they don't have to tell me directly. They can show me an advantage. They can show me it. Okay. Over 10,000 documents are part of the ICAA archive. Where's the advantage? Where does it say we benefit? No, that's not there. I'm going to eliminate that. Answer B. The ICAA's archive provides more access to these materials without removing them from their countries of origin. Is this a benefit? Is this an advantage? It is. It is. It is. Answer C and D don't have advantages. It tells me what the ICAA is. There's nothing there. There's nothing here either. So this was module 1 of the December version 2023 digital SAT test.